Hello, how are you? Thank you all for coming. So I am delighted to say that I have Katherine Bilsborough with me today as part of our Teaching Through Crisis series for National Geographic Learning. This series, on Monday, I met with Paul Dummett to talk about supporting supporting learners from refugee backgrounds. And on Saturday, we've got Alex Palinak talking about trauma-informed teaching. So, and today we have Katherine Bilsborough talking about supporting, incorporating refugee matters into the English language classroom. So for those of you who don't know Katherine, she is the queen of ideas. She's got so many amazing ideas up her sleeve that she'd love to share with you. So Katherine, would you like to just introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you, Emily. Thanks everybody for coming along, and to those of you who might be watching the recording later. And thanks to National Geographic for organising this series, because I think it's very, very useful, very important. And I think it's something that teachers have been asking for. So obviously that message got through to Emily. And she's been given the task of setting up this series, if you like. So yeah, so just I'm a materials writer and a teacher trainer. And number one, I suppose I'm a teacher, and I have been an ELT teacher since 1987, which is amazing, really, because I'm only 35. So I don't know how that's happened. And yeah, we're going to talk today. The focus of Emily and my session today really is to talk about how we can help teachers address the whole issue of refugees in the classroom, not teaching refugees, but teaching traditional classrooms wherever you might be, in whatever context you might be, and raising these issues, if you like.
Yeah.
So,
which is one of the reasons why I really wanted to speak to you, Katherine, because not only have you got lots of ideas, but my perspective is very much teaching refugees in their classroom, so and supporting them there. So it's nice to get a perspective from someone who wants to raise the profile of the global issue, but not necessarily have any first-hand experience in the classroom. So.
Yeah, I think it's two very different things, isn't it? And I know that with global issues in general, sometimes we come up against a bit of resistance. Sometimes some teachers say, why would we be talking about this in the English classroom? And my first reaction to that is usually, well, why wouldn't we? I find that it's strange, but I do understand. I do try to listen to other perspectives, and I think it's interesting to talk maybe first for a couple of minutes about why we might decide to address the issue of refugees in a classroom. So I know I've got some thoughts. A lot of my experiences with primary and young learners, and I know you, Emily, have got a lot more experience with adults and older students. Yeah. So it's quite good that we've probably both got our ideas on this.
Yeah, differing perspectives.
Yeah. And they might be the same. They might just be different, like more age appropriate or whatever.
Yeah. So. Yeah, for me, it's important. I think it's an important issue because it is a global issue. And then there's that perspective of, what if it happened to me? There's no reason why it wouldn't happen to any of us in the world. And where would you go in that instance? Which country would you go to? Where would you go to relatives in another country? What would you take if you were to leave and be put in position? So I guess the what if could be like a conditionals practice in a way. But yeah, and that's the whole empathy side of things as well. What's your perspective? Why do you think it's important to include?
Well, a few things. Firstly, putting at the heart of it that we are English teachers, I do think that English, David Crystal said in a book that he wrote about 25 years ago, something like Englishes are the language of global discussion. So if our students want to take part in these global discussions in any way, they need to be equipped with the language that will be useful for, well, firstly, to be able to understand what they're watching and seeing and hearing, and also to be able to join in and share their opinion. Also, in terms of students in the classroom, it's quite likely, I think, that the students that we're teaching today will one day, maybe very soon, maybe immediately, they might meet refugees. So I know that locally where I live, we've got a kind of infrastructure set up for refugees coming into the area. And over the years, we've had a lot of refugees from different backgrounds, different countries, and refugees for different reasons. Maybe a war, maybe a natural disaster, whatever. So the children here will meet these people, and the adults here too. They'll meet them in the market, they'll meet them in the street, etc. So it's good to have a little bit of preparation, I think. And also, if our students are watching the news or reading the news, etc., they'll already have some information. And sometimes, especially with children and young learners, they might have some misinformation. So I think it's important that we make sure that the information they have is appropriate, if you like, it's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it ties. I've seen ask us to develop values and skills, tolerance, empathy, which you mentioned, socio-emotional skills, and so on. And I think that global issues are, in general, and this particular topic is a great way to bring all of those things into the classroom. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And how would you include it in the classroom?
Well, if I were talking,
the difficulty for me when you think about including it is maybe you don't know. I guess it comes down to what you were talking about earlier about some teachers maybe having being a bit wary of it, like maybe because it's quite a harsh reality in some respects. Like it's emotional, it's quite depressing. So yeah, how should we cover it? Should we cover it just the good news stories, or do we go deep? And I guess it depends on the context of the student and the class.
I mean, that's probably the most important thing that we need to talk about, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I would say, well, in terms of young learners, especially primary, secondary, everything that we do needs to be age appropriate,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to do everything with great care and sensitivity. So I think that teachers aren't expected to have all the answers. That's important to know as well, I think, because sometimes teachers say, oh, I don't know enough about this. Nobody does, unless they're key workers in a certain context. So nobody expects you to have all the answers, but so it's a good idea to be informed and then to ask for help, I think, and to speak to colleagues, have a meeting at the school, maybe talk to parents and caregivers, so you don't just jump in there, you prepare the way. I think having the support of a group or a network, so not just doing it on your own, is key. I wouldn't want to do it myself on my own in any context. I would want support. I would want to talk things through. And of course, we can also get information from lots of places on the internet, key places where we might look. We'll mention a few, I think, in a minute. But also, there might be places locally where you can get information, terminology, so that we're using the correct terminology, because it's so easy to get it wrong.
Yeah, there's so many different words and terms, and
Yeah, and I know from my own experience, I've got it wrong a million times. And then you realize, oh dear, I should be using this terminology and not that terminology. And it's a learning process. But I would say if you're nervous and anxious and worried about it, don't put yourself through anything too awful. Just stop, step back, and reach out for help. And hopefully, for example, the videos that we're doing today and the rest of the series might offer some advice. Also, I think teachers, we are naturally, most of us anyway, most of the people I've worked with in my life are happy to collaborate and to talk about things and to form a group. And even if there's only 3 of you, if you're all finding out information and sharing it, you've got 3 times as much knowledge at the end of an hour's meeting, if you like. And I would tell everybody, I would urge people to form groups and networks and reach out and ask ideas and help. Or for example, if you're creating some materials or you've got an idea for a lesson, the first thing to do maybe is to show them to someone and say, do you think these are okay? Is there anything I should leave out, add in, or change?
Have I got the tone of this right?
Yeah, exactly. So and I think with children, and probably the same with adults, is probably a good place to start will be by finding out what your students actually know. So some simple questions. So for example, if you've got a class of 7 or 8-year-olds, you might say, why do some people have to leave their homes? And then just get them thinking about it and sharing ideas, and get them to maybe put themselves in their place, and maybe talk about what would you miss, or if you could take 5 things, and to get them to think about what it actually means to be in that position.
And actually what I was thinking was, it's quite different from the way I would teach, like the topics that I might include in a class that doesn't have first-hand experience of people seeking refuge would be different to the topics that maybe I would teach in class. Like, for example, I maybe wouldn't do a lesson on somebody's traumatic story of their journey getting to the UK, to whatever country, for safety, but I might include it in a class that doesn't have that first-hand experience, because I wouldn't want to trigger my students in a way that would upset them or start them thinking or give them flashbacks of any bad experiences they've been on. So
that's a really good point. And also it's probably worth mentioning that obviously getting to know your students and getting to know your class is really important. Because then you have key information about all kinds of issues, all kinds of things, positive, negative, whatever. But we might be unaware of a history of a refugee status within our class. So we might be moving to school, start teaching, you have a group of children, and they all seem more or less the same in terms of cultural background or whatever. But maybe you don't know that one child in that class arrived 2 years ago from somewhere else, whatever. So I think the more information you can have about your students, the better. And I usually say to teachers, never assume anything really. Just check, ask the head teacher, ask other teachers. So if you're going to be talking about this, if you're going to be doing a project or using a picture book or whatever, maybe it is a good moment to pause just beforehand and check the history, if you like, of usually things are flagged up, aren't they? If a child has any special requirements or special things that we should know about, so If that isn't the case in the centre where you work, then it might be something to start implementing, because that kind of information can save a lot of upset, so
and it might be that some families have a history with that kind of experience. So for example, my gran adopted a refugee from Germany during the war, actually, and they came over to Scotland for safety. So I've got a history of that in my family, and now here I am supporting and advocating for refugees. So
I think it's good to talk about it, though. I think it's good to the thing is, one interesting thing that occurred to me yesterday when I was thinking about this session that we're going to be doing, it occurred to me that very often we wait until a crisis happens before addressing it. So obviously at the moment we are all thinking about the refugees coming from Ukraine, and that's foremost in our minds. But obviously there are other refugees in different parts of the world. I would like to think that we can have these conversations all the time as a sort of continuous thread, if you like, so that we're not just rushing in there responding to some catastrophe, but instead we have what we need there ready, the resources, the ideas, the projects or whatever, and we can use them. Maybe we can link them to other things that are happening, that we're doing in the curriculum, for example. So maybe if we're talking about maybe if there's a unit in the course book on travel, that would be a good opportunity to bring in the other angle of people who are forced to travel, and just turning it on its head a bit, and not waiting to just jump in there maybe in the middle of when they're learning about something else. So I think that's something we should consider anyway, with the whole
like embedding it in, incorporating it throughout,
utilizing
it the same way you would with many other protected characters,
usually
many other diversities.
Exactly. Or when we're talking about things like environmental or green issues, it shouldn't just be a unit in a book and then move on, because this is something that is happening all the time. It's been happening for thousands of years, and unfortunately it will continue to happen, but we need to address it better and deal with it better and have ideas and understand things better, I think. So
I've been teaching for about 15 years, teaching people seeking refuge for about 15 years, and I've seen the demographic changing depending on wherever the crisis is in the world. So we wanted to make this series to be as sustainable as possible, so that it can continue, because I don't think that's, as you said, it's been around for thousands of years, so it's not going to stop,
and it can happen. I think the beauty of, I'm always interested in and supporting teachers who want to take existing materials and then add something on and create something themselves. And I think that often the best way of doing this is by looking at a local, using a local perspective, because that makes things more relatable. And if you think about it, everywhere has probably got something going on. So for example, in Spain recently, we had the volcano in the Canary Islands. So a lot of people were displaced, they lost their homes, they had to move, etc. So it's not just happening from one country to another, from one side of the world, one continent. It's happening within countries, so we can see what's happening. We can find probably testimonials from people, maybe what happened, how they rebuilt their lives, etc. So it's there, it's in the real world, which is why I think, and coming back to what we said at the beginning, why it's so important to equip our students with the language. You know, I think we need to keep that at the heart of things. We are English teachers, and so we need to think about, you know, what language, maybe that's a good starting point. What language do my students need to be able to give their opinions, share ideas about action they can take and support? Do they know how to have a discussion? You know, and their keys is a language that we teach anyway. They're in every syllabus. Yeah. They've, you know, functional language or language for agreeing or disagreeing, or, you know, this kind of thing. There's nothing new there. We're just kind of
giving it a
flipping.
different angle. Yeah, so kind of twisting every lesson that you would maybe find in a course book and adding it on, similar to how you would maybe incorporate the environment if you've got.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you had some ideas that you'd like to share with us.
Yeah. When we were planning this, I was thinking teachers usually like to have some practical ideas or places to go for resources, etc. I know I do as a teacher, so I thought I'd like to mention a few, and I know that you've got some great ideas too. So I focused on mainly things for young learners, primary, secondary. So first of all, I'd like to mention a new venture, a new project that started recently called Bracelets and Peace. And this was set up by two friends, Anne Robinson, who lives in Spain, and Anna Duchenko from Ukraine. And the idea is that this is it's an ongoing project. They've got a website and a Facebook page, and they are kind of doing collaborative things with children in classes and teachers all around the world, where they're making bracelets, focusing on peace, collaboration, sharing, working together. The children are making tutorial videos to show other children in other schools how to make a particular kind of bracelet. Nice. And then in those schools, they're watching the tutorials, they're doing the craft work with their teacher, they're putting up photos on the website, and then they're thinking of ideas of how to make bracelets. They're raising money for various refugee charities, etc. And it's only started recently, but it's just taken off, boom, because I think it's really nice. The focus is on peace, friendship, tolerance, and that's what I like about it. And it's very child focused, so they're learning, they're talking, they're using language, they're coming up with something creative. And I would urge people to check out the website, because they might like to join in, get some ideas for that.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it is. There are lots of courses that teachers can take with a theme of refugees. So I know that you know this, you've mentioned this, so that Future Learn, when I checked out the other day or yesterday, they have 15 different courses on refugees. And one of them, which attracted my attention, if you like, is a 4-week course with 3 hours of study per week. And it's a toolkit for teachers. So ideas about addressing the issues of migrants and refugees in education. So that might be a course that people would like to sign up for, and it's free, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think if you go to Future Learning, you just type refugees in, all those courses will come up.
They'll all come up, yeah. And
I think also Julie's going to put a link for us as well on the comments.
Excellent, because different people will be interested in different aspects. And maybe that's another thing to do within a teaching centre. Maybe different people could do different courses and then get together and have that.
Yeah, that's a nice idea.
You know, sharing what they learned, sort of thing, the main show and tell or whatever.
Yeah. The cascading of training.
Cascading, yeah.
Yeah.
There is I actually wrote a lesson plan for the British Council on Teaching English page, and maybe we can add that into one of the links. And it's for 12 years plus, but I've seen it used with younger students too. If you have a look at it, you'll be able to see whether your students could handle it. And basically, it's a poster project on the theme of refugees, where the children have to imagine that a group of refugees of the same age are coming to their village to live, and they have to work out a plan and ideas of how to welcome them, what they might need, organize an event for like a party to get to know them, etc. And I've seen this actually done in classes, so I know it works.
Yeah.
Cool. And then I'd like to mention the UNHCR, the United Nations Refugee Agency, and we can share that link too. They have an amazing collection of materials for primary and secondary with teacher guides, and they've divided it up into different age groups. So they've got 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 15, 15 to 18. And their activities to do in class, develop different skills, critical thinking, etc. The activities take between 10 and 30 minutes. There are lesson plan templates, video resources, worksheets, video games for teenagers, which is just fantastic. It's like really motivating. There's a poster campaign idea, etc. There's loads of stuff on there. I haven't had a good look myself, actually, but there's something for everyone. I'm absolutely sure about that. What about you, Emily? Because you had some ideas. I don't want to
Well, there's the Teaching Through Crisis section of the National Geographic Learning site is an area in development. So we're working at the moment on putting more lessons on here, but there's some bite-sized lesson plans in there. So there's ones for adults, for young learners, and for teens, and you can just have a browse, and it's ever growing. So I think the link will be in the comments as well. But and also one of my favorite books. I've bought this book so many times for my nephews. Basically every child in my life has a copy of this book. It's about a Syrian refugee who is a little boy from Syria who comes over to the UK to resettle, and about his time and about the experience of his best friend, new best friend. It's just a lovely book. I think it'd be a nice introduction. And there's 2 other books. So I'm a graphic facilitator, but I'm also obsessed with graphic novels. And I think when you put visuals in front of people or literature in front of people, I think it desensitizes the topic in a way. So a nice, happy, warm, well, not happy, but friendly, warm images. So this is Illegal by, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Ewan Colfer maybe, and Andrew Donkin. And it's basically about a guy who comes over from Africa and his journey through being trafficked into Europe. And yeah, it's a great book. And the other one, a great graphic novel. The other one is Welcome to the New World, which is about moving from Syria to America. It's another graphic novel. So it's quite nice because you could like blank out the words, get them to add their own, get them to draw their own stories, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think anything visual, picture books, videos, whatever. I came across another thing that I think we've got the link to as well, and there's a book called Carly, A Refugee's Story. It's a picture book, but it's been turned into an animation, and it's available to watch on YouTube. It's very, very clear, so it's very easy to understand. So I think it's quite good for lower levels, because very often some of the things I've seen are that the language is too advanced, but this in particular is quite good because it's very clear and very visual. And also, just very briefly, there's another one, another video which is called A Refugee's Story, and it's an animation. It's good for teenagers. it's part of the IRAP project. That's the International Refugee Assistance Project. And the great thing about this animation is that there is no audio, there's no speaking.
Okay, so you can use it for all levels. Very
Exactly.
flexible.
It's just there is audio, like sound effects and things, but there's no dialogue. There's no.
Yeah.
So that's a great one to, to actually describe what's happening, etc. Because you can grade the level of the language, obviously, to suit the students.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of things out there, and I'm sure we'll.
Yeah, I'll try and compile them all, I think.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Yeah, Michelle Morgan's also got a lovely story. I think it's based on an animation, Ali's Journey. And it's kind of his journey to Australia, I think. A really lovely lesson. So if you follow Michelle Morgan, I think it's on her social media feed somewhere.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. That's really, really good.
Yeah. If anyone has any other ideas, please do share them in the comments, because that's where all the real learning happens, I think.
I think so too. And I haven't been following on the Facebook chat because I get confused if I'm trying to do more than one or two things at once. I don't know if there are any questions that we should be trying to answer, or
I'm just having a quick blast through here. So Julie's shared all the links that we put up.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's it.
Great.
I think there's maybe much in the way of comments or questions.
We can go back anyway, can't we?
Yeah.
We can go back to the Facebook page, and if there are any questions that we need to, we think we can respond to, we can have it later.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well,
yeah.
30 minutes goes quickly.
Thanks for all your ideas. It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It flies when you're sharing ideas. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Kath. You've been brilliant as always.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a joy. It's always lovely to mix with teachers, even though I'm not there, we're not all in the same room. That connection, I think, I know I value it more each day, especially since we've been confined to our homes for so long recently. It's really nice to be able to talk and share ideas. So thank you. Yeah,
great. Thanks. So the next session will be with Alex Palinak on Saturday morning UK time at 9 a.m. and it's going to be on trauma-informed practice. So Alex has been doing lots of research into trauma-informed practice. She knows a lot. So if you are wanting some information about supporting learners who've maybe experienced trauma or have PTSD, then please do come along, and you'll be able to catch it on Catch Up just the same. And then watch this space. There will be more sessions coming up very soon. I've got quite a few in the pipeline that haven't quite got dates quite confirmed yet, but we're firming them up. And yeah, watch out for keep an eye on this page. Okay, thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.